All right, let's bring in NewsNation political contributor Denise Gitsham on this, a Republican strategist who is also an aide to former President George W. Bush. And we're also joined by Democratic analyst Jonathan Harris. Welcome both. And Jonathan, let's actually start with you on what Joe Khalil was just reporting on. We are hearing from Biden's campaign and the statement kind of saying this doesn't matter that much. We really need to keep the focus on the ballot box. Are you surprised by that tact? Do you think we absolutely will hear from Biden? And what will his messaging likely be surrounding this?
Well, I mean, President Biden is a seasoned politician, and I think that I was saying yesterday when I was talking about this that he's been very intentional about not playing into this victim mentality that Trump has, where he tries to feed victimhood to his followers, and everybody's so mean to me, and it's this massive conspiracy by the Biden campaign and all of that, which is nonsense. Biden didn't pay a porn star. Biden wasn't on the jury. Biden wasn't the prosecutor or the judge. All of this is because of Donald Trump. But I think President Biden has been very wise not to play into that by making, excessive comments on this case. He's let it play out. And I think when he does decide what he says as the seasoned politician that he is, it will have the weight of understanding that he controls the bully pulpit. He's the president of the United States. And so it will set a tone. But I think that statement was wise. If this isn't necessarily a campaign issue as much as it is, Donald Trump is a convicted felon, according to the jury, for breaking the law. And that's really kind of what the focus needs to be. And as it relates to the election, keep rousing the election, go out and vote and support his campaign is what he's saying.
And Denise, over to you on this. Do you agree with Jonathan that Biden is focused on not playing into a victimhood mentality by Trump, that this is a witch hunt by the Biden administration?
I mean, of course he can't do that. If he were to do that, then everyone would see this, and they already do. 80% of Americans knew going into this trial that it would be hard for President Trump to get a fair shake at justice. And that's because the foundation of this very trial was so corrupt from the very beginning. People understood that this was in deep blue Manhattan from a DA that had campaigned on being a Trump slayer. So when your intentions are that clearly stated, it doesn't matter if it's the president or his third highest appointee at the Department of Justice who comes over to prosecute the president, President Trump, that is. It doesn't matter if the president says anything himself about it, because it's very clear that all the Democratic forces have lined up to take this president out because they can't win by any other means. I will say that back to what Joe was saying earlier, this outcome doesn't help Biden. If the Biden campaign doubles down on it, it will only hurt him. RFK Jr. went on the airwaves last night and said, this is outrageous. And he's like, I'm no fan of President Trump's. Obviously, I'm running against him. But what we all see is this is because Biden cannot win in a head-to-head, then that's exactly what the polls are showing in all of the swing states. He said, I don't want to win by cheating, by going through a judicial system where the rules and the laws are rigged to go after one specific opponent in a presidential election. And Americans who are watching this are not saying, wow, this makes me want to vote for Biden so much more. What they're saying is, I'm open to a third-party candidate where none of this political warfare can continue through the legal system that we should all uphold.
Actually,
Go ahead, Jonathan. I was actually going to ask, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to what Denise just said. And I also want to ask you, do you think that this could backfire for Democrats? Jonathan, go ahead.
Well, I think it's important not to get distracted by so much of this Republican right-wing rhetoric on this. Number one, the majority of Americans, according to several polls, there's an almost brand new CBS poll out, that the majority of Americans think that Donald Trump was guilty. And that's not new. It's been the case the entire time that these cases have been proceeding. I understand that Republicans have got to figure out some kind of narrative to feed people. And so they say that, oh, Donald Trump's a victim. Donald Trump is being attacked. It's because, Biden thinks he can't win. Biden defeated Trump by 8 million votes the last time that they were competing in an election. And this trial it's not an election tactic. This is because Donald Trump broke the law. He interfered in an election in 2016, and he was prosecuted for that. Donald Trump is the candidate that supposedly talks about law and order. He threatened to lock up and prosecute Hillary Clinton when he was running against her in 2016. And at no point did any conservative say that was inappropriate, that was election interference, that was trying to come after someone because you can't compete. But now it is. That's absolute nonsense. This is a person who specifically broke the law, and despite campaigning on law and order, doesn't like the fact that law and order just held him accountable. And now he is he is not President Trump. He is the former president. He is convict Donald Trump. And that needs to be very clear. And that is not because of anyone but himself. No one else is to blame except him for his conduct.
Denise, we have about 15 seconds, but final word over to you.
Sure. The problem is that nobody knows what the underlying so-called felony was because the jury was so biased, or they were biased against the president based on what the instructions were. And so if we want to say, show me the person and I'll show you the crime, and devolve into a banana republic where we decide that we're going to prosecute somebody by any means, and that's exactly what 8 out of 10 Americans have been saying since the beginning of this trial, exactly the reason that DA Bragg chose not to pursue this at the beginning when he was first elected, and exactly why the DOJ chose not to pursue these charges against former President Trump, then, all Americans see this for what it is. We can Democratic message this all we want and spin it all day long, but Americans know that at the end of the day, if this can happen to President Trump, it can happen to every single American that's watching right now and paying attention. And that's what undermines what's happening in America. It's a Pyrrhic victory for Democrats who are willing to sacrifice the integrity of our judicial system at the altar of politics, and it's dangerous.
It just means no one is above the law. That's what it means.
No
and that's
one's
a great thing.
Either,
okay. Jonathan Harris, Denise Gitcham,
either.
I appreciate both. This is exactly what we want to do here. There are such diverse perspectives. It's such a divisive issue. Thank you for both coming on. Thank you, truly. Appreciate it.
Thank you.